And so if everyone either at home or in person, if you would like to just stand for a moment. As you are able. I just say, everybody, let's take just a moment. We're going to be talking about the embodied presence of the divine today, and that includes the Shekinah, which is the divine eminence, which is how spirit comes into our bodies, which we believe are, of course, are sacred and holy. So I'm going to invite us just to gently take a stretch up, and just think about all that is above us as we look at the trees and the sky, and we make ourselves like trees. Reach for the stars. We thank God for the cosmos. Just invite us to put our hands kind of down our palms, that we want to also bless the earth, our great mother who holds us, Mother Earth underneath us. And feel your roots going down to the balls of your feet and down into the great mother. You feel held there by her loving, sustaining presence. And then draw some of that earth energy up and feel a place in your own heart where earth and heaven meet. As we ourselves are the divine conduit, the sacred marriage, the sacred union of heaven and earth. And then just take a moment as your body needs to. If there's any kinks, you need to just kind of move around a little bit to wake your body up. And let's do it with a mindfulness that is grateful for the movements of our bodies and the ability to be here, the ability to be alive, the ability to breathe. And again, let's take a deep breath. Let it out with a sigh. Oh. And again, take a deep breath. Let it out with a sigh. Oh. And as you are able, feel free to come back to your chairs. And invite us to say together the call to worship that is printed in your bulletin. By John Philip Newell. Whichever way we turn, O God, there is your face. In the light of the moon and patterns of the stars, in scarred mountain rifts and ancient groves, in mighty seas and creatures of the deep. Whichever way we turn, O God, there is your face. In the light of eyes we love, in the salt of tears we have tasted, in weathered countenances east and west, in the soft skin glow of the child everywhere. Whichever way we turn, O God, there is your face among us. And so now we'll have some special music, which Chris will share with us this morning.
This song is called We Hold the Love by your friend Melissa. I hold you, my whole side, my eyes, I hold the truth, my breath, I hold destruction, in my eyes, you hold the sun, in your smile, you hold the darkness, you hold the ocean, in your dreams, you hold compassion, in your love. Tomorrow, our touch, we in our way, let us sing praise them. Oh, we hold all within. To be as travelers inside, there is no place to hide. The love is holding us inside the love. Inside the love, we learn to trust that we can fall, that we can fall to the all-encompassing place to reach where all can Our prayers they rise, sprouting wings like butterflies. Our spirits sing, we recognize the divine in each other's eyes and in everything in common. As we pull these masks away in witness of what you do, is the way to heal. We hold it all within. And in surrendering, we learn how to just let things be. It's how we become free. We hold the love. We hold the love that's holding us inside the love. Inside the love, we learn to trust that we can fall. That we can fall into the all-encompassing Spirit welcomes
Ashe, amen. Let us take a moment to just drink that into our hearts, our souls, our spirits, as we are held by God's love, by God's loving embrace. We feel and experience deep within us. Every breath we take. So from this place of embodied love, I invite us to share the prayers of our community together today. And in order to do that, and to include our folks at home in that circle, we're going to ask that as we share our prayers, we have a prayer to share here. Use that mic. And we do have some hand sanitizer that we put down. You can pass that too if you'd like. But this will allow us to include our folks at home so that they can hear us here in the sanctuary. So, and then we will have a time where I will also welcome any prayers from those on Zoom. We can put that together. And so if you would you have a prayer you would like to share here, why don't you, it might be easiest if you just raise your hand and I'll send you the microphone. And as is our practice here, we address God in the prayer in whatever language works best for you, whatever name for God. And then we share our prayer. And then we conclude by saying, God in your grace, and we say together, you hear our prayers. So let us lift up the prayers of the community this morning.
Dear Creator, lover of us all, I give thanks for the skunk that has befriended our yard. And it's funny, she's moved in under my front deck. And I haven't figured out how to exclude her. Because she's a powerful digger. I saw her the other day trotting down early morning, probably getting back to the place. Trotting down the pathway of our patio, and she just undulates so beautifully. Her fur moves so smoothly. I'm just so struck. And she's so generous. She does not stink up we eat on the deck above it. And we never noticed her, other than I know where she's getting. And when you said when two or more are gathered in my name, I know that references people, but for me, I have a strong sense of the community of all creatures. And I feel that when I'm in communion with other creatures as well as people. And I give thanks. God, in your grace,
You hear our prayers. Let us pronounce brightly to the light.
My prayer today is for my sister. She's in the hospital. She's been diagnosed with lung cancer. I'm with her this Thursday. And she talked to me. This sweet little voice. And I said, sisters, who are we the worst people to but our sisters, right? And I said to her, Janine, I love you. And she said, do you really? So yes, I want to tell her, yes, God, in your grace.
You hear.
Divine and loving presence. Quite honestly, it feels really strange to pray to you with a microphone. Although I know that you are everywhere, this is a new experience. I just want to acknowledge that. And I ask your presence with my friend Lou, who is dealing with so many things, with difficult eyesight, back pain, the need to move to Phoenix, and just to pray for strength and guidance for all those whose lives are bringing change, which is actually probably all of us these days. that we may know your presence from within us, that we may feel that you are there, that we may experience you as love which rises up within us. We are with you in the love world. In your many names, God, in your
Here.
God bless America. I am happy to do that. It was a long trip driving all the way from Edmonton, Alberta. Over to down here to visit my daughter, Lisa. And we come to babysit. And then to the deep trip down here. And I got to experience all the beauty of this driving through the Rockies. And I did a lot of praying on the way down here that we would have a safe journey. And that I'd have a great experience with my little granddaughter, Ruby, who's 7 years old. And thank you for bringing me to this church. It's a new experience. I'm recently born again in Edmonton, and actually I was recently baptized again. So that was a nice experience. I've been living in Edmonton for 49 years now. I'm married to Canadian, and I've been living up there, so I have my 4 children. And I'm divorced now, but anyway, I'm very thankful for all my kids, and especially Alicia living in Fairfax. And I've had a great time coming here. I've been here lots of times, so it feels very comfortable for me to be here. But anyway, I'd like to just send out a nice blessing for all my new friends, my family, and for the wonderful experiences I'm going to have. Please help us to have a safe journey home. And looking forward to spending lots of downtime here, and the spiritualness of being here is amazing. And it's a new experience for me, so it's nice, and I'm taking it all in. So thank you, Lord, for everything. Brought to mind.
For safe travel mercies all the way from Canada and your time here. God, in your grace, you hear our prayers.
Spirit, pray for clarity and for the strength to go slow in this place that feels like wants me to go fast all the time, and the courage to face whatever comes up in that slowness and stillness. God, in your grace,
You hear our prayers.
God, I ask for your protection for all the refugees in this world right now, people who don't have a place, don't have comfort in a home, that are trying to find a way to a better place. It's hard for me to imagine. And I pray for them every day. God, help them find that safety and comfort again, and may all around them welcome them. God, in grace,
You hear our prayers.
Divine Spirit, I'm giving you the prayers of gratitude today. Being reminded coming back in person here. Being reminded of the first day I ever walked into the church. And remembering the feeling of being a spiritual refugee that had found a home. And I'm feeling today that renewing of finding a home here. And I'm really immersed in a feeling of having come through great difficulties, which we all have with the pandemic, but in my own personal life, of having come through great difficulties of my world collapsing, and knowing that I have a home in the universe in a way that was bigger and greater than anything that was happening to me. And I'm just absolutely experiencing right now having come through, and my children having their feet firmer on the ground again. I am so grateful for this. And I pray for the help that I need in being able to help them proceed in their journeys. And I ask every blessing to be poured on me and my children. Without taking that away from everyone else that needs blessings. I just felt a little bit selfish right now. But absolutely, I know there's enough to go around. There's enough to go around. So God, in your grace, you hear our
So are there any prayers of the community on Zoom that you would like to share? Yes, and Jesse.
Prayers of gratitude. Gratitude for the spirit of the waters of the world. Gratitude for the spirit of the fire. Gratitude for Earth, Mother Gaia, beautiful Gaia. Gratitude for the air. Gratitude for spirit, giver of all life. Heart of the heavens and heart of Gaia. Gratitude for this day. Gratitude for this moment in time where we gather in the name of love and gratitude. Mother, Father, God, in your name, you hear our prayers.
I'd like to say a prayer for my son who woke up with a stomach bug, and I just pray that he gets better quickly and gets the rest and care and love that he needs to bounce back to his energetic 4-year-old self. God, in your grace.
Divine healer, I pray for our niece Karen, whose cancer is appears to be getting worse instead of better. I just pray for whatever healing is possible for her. God, in your grace.
We also continue to lift up prayers for Casey, who is still in DC area, caring for her son, Theo. We also pray for Nancy Finston and her upcoming hip surgery at the end of the month. And for all the other prayers that may be on our hearts that we haven't mentioned aloud, including all the prayers for all the needs of the world. We hold them together in community. And we welcome Spirit's presence into their midst. As we are also ambassadors of your loving care, our own walking answer to someone's prayer. And so we lift up all these things to you. In the name of Yeshua, and Mary, and in your many names. Let us continue to pray as we say together the Lord's Prayer, which is also printed in the bulletin. Gracious God, heart of the world, revealed through every aspect of creation, understood through our awareness. May we honor the holiness of creation and act accordingly, so that your love is reflected in the way we live. May we always be thankful for the food we eat and the friends we have. May we forgive those who hurt us and be forgiven when we act out of our own woundedness. In the freedom of love, may we live as your heartbeat in the world and not be compromised by hesitation. Through our freedom, may your justice be seen and heard and experienced, so that all may live in harmony forevermore. Amen. So we remember that the word Shema means to awaken in Hebrew. So we awaken to the presence of Spirit with us in singing the Shema Yisrael. Does someone want to sing the Shema this morning? Great. Does someone want to read the short mark passage? Joanne, thank you. Does someone want to read the poem for calling the Spirit back? You want to read the poem? Okay, Joanne, you read the poem. Does someone else want to read the mark passage, including anybody at home? Yeah, great, Chris, great, thank you. Okay. And I will skip this to
The words of the Shema are old words, ancient. They go back to the Old Testament, to the promise of God. And these are words that Jesus would have heard in his practice of his spirituality. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Sing. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
So this is a reading from Mark 14:22 from chapter. In the course of their meal, having taken and blessed the bread, Jesus broke it and gave it to them. Then he said, "Take, eat, this is my body." Taking the chalice, he gave it to them, thanking God, and they all drank from it. He said, "This is my blood, the living life force, God's new covenant poured out for many people. I'll not be drinking wine again until the new day when I drink it in the kingdom of God."
Sacred text 2, for calling back the Spirit of Joe Arjun. Put down the bag of potato chips, that white bread, that bottle of pop. Turn off that cell phone, computer, or remote control. Open the door and then close it behind you. Take a deep breath, offered by the friendly winds. Give it back with gratitude. Let your moccasin feet take you to the encampment of the guardians who have known you before time, who will be there after time. When you find your way into the circle, to the fire kept burning by the keepers of your soul, you will be welcomed. Cleanse yourself with cedar and sage. Let go the pain you are holding in your mind, your shoulders, your heart, all the way to your feet. Let go of the pain of your ancestors. Ask for forgiveness. Receive unconditional grace. Call upon the help of those who love you. These helpers may take many forms: animals, elements, birds, angels, skunks, saints, stones, or ancestor. Call your spirit back. Free it from any places where it may be caught in shame, judgment, or abuse. Free it with love. Call your spirit back in a way that it may want to return. Speak to it as you would a beloved child. Enter into quiet rest. Know that all is holy.
Speak to it as you would a beloved child. Know that all is holy. When we're able to do that, we do call our spirit back, don't we? From whatever fragmented places maybe we have left it. And to me, this is also what happens when we keep the ancient practice known as Sabbath. Whether it's a big Sabbath or little Sabbath moments, the point of the Sabbath is to restore our soul, to reunite us with God, with divine presence, when our busyness sometimes distracts us or fragments us. So as the poem invites us, sometimes we need to put down the potato chips and the bottle of pop, or whatever it is for us, that's the distraction, right? Sometimes maybe we even need to go on a 24-hour news fast. Not that we bury our heads in the sand and aren't paying attention to the news, we are, but sometimes we need a little break so we can reset. And then we can respond to the news from our hearts rather than just being overwhelmed and then wanting to bury our heads in the sand. All of this is what can be gleaned through this ancient practice known as Sabbath. And what I found fascinating when I was researching it a bit, is really, if you look deeply enough, in the heart of our simple Christian communion practice can be found the Sabbath. Part of the Sabbath is in communion. And that's when we remember our Jewish roots. And that we often think in Christianity that we know that the communion, what we call the communion or Eucharist, is patterned after the Lord's Supper, Last Supper, which is Passover, right? Happens once a year, big Seder meal. But there's this other tradition that I'm sure you know, but if we're not Jewish, we might forget, known as Friday night Shabbat. That ritual happens much more frequently. Every single Friday night at sundown. At sundown, you light the Sabbath candles. And then you sing little songs and say prayers. And you eat challah bread, which is the bread that we have on the communion table today, which is braided bread, also deeply symbolic of how we are intertwined with the divine presence. And it usually has a little honey in it to remind us of the sweetness of life. And it just so happens that the synchronicity of spirit caused Tara to cut up little pieces of challah bread when I asked her to bring communion bread today. So we'll be able to taste some of the challah bread today. But as you may know, this simple ritual of Friday night Shabbat is usually accompanied by maybe a meal, and again, a song and a few phrases, the lighting of candles, and then the sharing of challah bread and wine, which ultimately is deeply symbolic. And it's the thing that kicks off the Sabbath. The rest of the Sabbath follows for 24 hours after that until sundown on Saturday night. Those who keep the Sabbath try to limit distractions. The woman that I will be quoting from in a moment, Mirabai Starr, who is an author, wrote the book Wild Mercy. She's also Jewish. And she says she tries to do it as a revolutionary act because she also tries to stay away from commerce for 24 hours. She tries to not drive her car or buy anything and just take a real break to let the earth and her soul and body rest. Now, sometimes we know we can't have 24 hours, but sometimes even moments of mindfulness can restore our soul. And so as we finally get to have the opportunity today to partake of communion again in a long time, that we haven't in a long time, I'd like us to reflect on some of the deep symbolism that is found in communion and how that is linked to our Jewish roots in both the Friday night Shabbat and the Seder, and then link that back again to Sabbath and how that can restore our souls. So, as you may know, the symbolism of the first, usually the candles are lit, and we see there's 2 candles on the altar today too, that represent again the yin and the yang energies, or the masculine and feminine energies in the life force. On the Kabbalah, it's also the left and right pillar, the yin and yang pillar, force and form, and the candles represent chesed, compassion, and gevurah, discernment. Then also the bread and wine represent sort of the masculine and feminine. And the wine is the sort of yang aspect, and the bread is also the yin aspect. And so that also represents the sacred marriage and union within ourselves, but also the marriage of heaven and earth, and of the divine coming to us and us receiving the divine in such a way that we experience reunification and wholeness. There is a really sweet phrase that you may know is uttered when the cup is poured. The Mirabai Starr talks about the Kiddush cup, which is the empty cup that sits on the table until it is filled with wine, and the empty cup represents our longing for God. She says the empty Kiddush cup is a symbol of the heart that cries out in longing for God. The wine is the quantum response of love rushing in and filling us to overflowing. It turns out that the Holy One yearns for union with us as ardently, even more so, as we desire union with the Holy One. The cup is then shared in community, and each one takes a sip and wishes the other Shabbat Shalom. And the phrase of blessing is uttered, "Blessed are you, beloved our God, who brings forth the fruit of life." So we see the symbolism of ourselves as chalices being reunited with the life force of God. And then again, the bread, of course, also represents the body, the physical body, the yin aspect, the feminine aspect, as well as the body of Mother Earth. The phrase then that is uttered, "Blessed are you, beloved our God, who brings forth the bread from the land." And this is then connected to the presence of the Shekinah, which, as you may know, in Judaism is the feminine force, the feminine face of God, that is also divine immanence, embodiment. And the ancient tradition says that unfortunately the Shekinah is in exile for the other days of the week, and then for Shabbat, when the candles are lit, she comes out of exile and comes back in. Modern scholars say she doesn't have to be in exile anymore. That every time we are able to partake and then be mindful, really present, the Shekinah is present with us as well. Divine embodiment, divine immanence. And that is part of what we celebrate in communion too. There's also an aspect of healing and wholeness and reconciliation. And I think it's interesting that we are celebrating this in the week that on Thursday, of course, within Judaism, it was the celebration of Yom Kippur, which is the Day of Atonement. And sometimes as Christians, we shy away from that word because there's been so much heavy-handedness with the theory of atonement, but really it just means at one ment. At one ment. Reunifying ourselves with God and divine presence. And so within Yom Kippur, as you may know, it's about forgiveness, releasing, letting go, and offering ourselves self-forgiveness as well, so that anything that's separating us in judgment or shame of ourselves or others is released, so that again, we can have at-one-ment, we can have union with God. And I think it's so interesting that the poem also talks about this. To call our spirit back, we also have to free ourselves from wherever we've been entangled in shame or judgment. And when we reflected on this poem at our Oasis gathering last Thursday, the image that came to me from my soul was a kite that had gotten stuck in tree branches. That when I'm caught in my own self-judgment or shame or criticism, I get my kite, my spirit is caught and it can't fly free. And as the poem says, when we offer ourselves forgiveness and receive God's forgiveness, our spirit is free to soar again, so that we can be all that God has called us to be. And interestingly enough, Jesus also talked about forgiveness when he participated in the Last Supper and presided over it. And he equated his blood with forgiveness, which we often, again, sometimes aren't sure what to do with that. But Neil Douglas Potts, who studied the Aramaic, which is a language that Jesus spoke, said that he thinks it's because our blood actually refreshes itself every time we take a deep breath and re-oxygenate our blood. So with a conscious breath and connecting to Jesus's life force and his way of forgiveness, we can actually let go and restore our souls so that we experience our own unification with God. Again, all of this is made easier when we can also keep those Sabbath moments that reconnect us to God, so we can be present to all that God has to offer us, so that we can see the skunks as our sisters and be mindful of God's presence with us in so many forms. And so I just want to share this quote from Mirabai Starr as she talks about how a hike she takes every day is different when it's the Sabbath hike based on her own mindfulness. She says, "I have the great fortune of living in the high desert, surrounded by natural forest. When I am at home between travels, I walk every day in the foothills behind our house. On Shabbat, the Sabbath, the robust determination of my regular trek becomes a languid encounter with the body of the mother. I slow down and remember to praise her with my footsteps. I caress her with my breath. I thank her I may be hiking the same trails I traverse during ordinary time, but on the Sabbath, I set out to walk with what the Navajo people call the Beauty Way. This is what we can be reminded of when we sit down with potato chips and a bottle of pop. And we pick up whatever reconnects us to God. And one of the things that can reconnect us to God when we bring mindfulness to it is this simple ritual that we call communion. It's called communion because we commune with each other and with God, and we are reunited and whole. And that then enables us to go back out into the world, our chalice full, able to share God's love with the world. So we're going to have the opportunity to share communion in just a moment. And to prepare us for that, I'd like to just have us prepare our souls with a brief prayer. So let us be in prayer. Loving and gracious God, creator of the universe, we're so grateful for all the elements that you bless us with. As Manoush shared in her prayer today, for the elements of earth, air, fire, water, and also the simple elements of bread and juice and candlelight that can remind us of your presence with us in simple earthly things. As we partake of that with mindfulness, we can be reunited with you. So if there is anything that's keeping our hearts from fully receiving your love today, I would ask that in this moment, we just lift it up to your presence. Allow your love to fill it like a kiddush cup. If there's anything in our own hearts that we feel we need forgiveness for, or that we need to forgive ourselves or someone else, let us receive that grace in this moment now. Let us imagine God's loving light and unconditional love filling every moment of whatever that thing is that we want to give to God. And may our hearts be filled with the honey of divine acceptance, reunification, wholeness. And may we share that grace with the world. So on this day, we ask that you pour out your Holy Spirit upon us and upon these, your gifts of bread and wine. That the bread we break and the cup we bless may be for us our union with the body and blood of Christ. By your Spirit, make us one with Christ, so that we may be one with all who share this feast in every time and place. We ask this in your many names. Amen. And so as we prepare to receive communion, we also light the sacred Sabbath candles. Representing both the yin and yang divine life force, the Buddha and the Zen. We receive the light. when Jesus shared his last Passover. With his disciples, he took bread, and after giving thanks, he broke it. And he said, "This is my body, given for you. Do this remembering me." And in the same way, after supper, he took the chalice, the Kiddush cup. And he says, "This is the vessel waiting to be filled with my divine love and grace. All of you drink of it." For each time we eat this bread and drink this cup, we proclaim Jesus' life, death, and resurrection until he comes again. These are the gifts of God for the people of God. And we celebrate even more deeply my own tears of joy to finally be able to do this in person after 18 months. And so these are tears of gratitude and thanksgiving. And we are still united with our brothers and sisters on Zoom. And if you have a little piece of bread or juice and you would like to share it with us, then we invite you to do that too. So, Chris is going to share a little beautiful music with us. And we just invite you, as you feel so moved, to come one at a time and take your bread and your juice. And let us just be mindful of this as a sacred Sabbath moment as we partake of these elements. we receive it into the depths of our souls, may our souls be restored, unified, reunited with you in such a way that we may be a blessing to the world. In your many names we pray. And so we are going to prepare to receive a special treat from Chris in a moment, another song. But this is our new offering basket. It's okay, you just blessed it, Joanne. And rather than pass around plates, you can see this at home. It's like a harvest basket that says thankful. And we've kind of gotten out of the practice because we've been on Zoom, but we want to reinstitute the flow of offering into our service because it makes sense. As we receive, we also give back. And the fall equinox is coming up in a few days, and that reminds us of the harvest of all that we receive, all goodness. And so we know that there are lots of other ways to give, and no gift is too small, even a nickel. And that there are many ways to give, and sometimes we give with our hearts and our prayers and helping to set up on Sunday morning, and so many different ways. So if while Chris is playing, if there's something you want to get ready to give to the church, that's great. We also, either way, in addition, I gave out little white slips of paper. And if you want to write a word or phrase of something you're grateful for, maybe even just a word or phrase of something in the church you're grateful for, then we'll pass around the harvest basket, and we can put the blessings, word or phrase in there too. And then this will be another way for us to offer up our prayers of blessing and grace to God. So, did you want to say anything about this song?
The song is called I Am. Wrote it one day looking at a body of flower.
Nice.
Go deeper and deeper into the depths of that, and recognizing that God is not just outside of me, but that I have God within me, and though I may not be the creator, and God will make this work for me as well. It's called I Am. I am the new day come again.
Indeed, we are one with the great I am. We are king and queen, sacred marriage, masculine and feminine. And as we remember all that is holy, we can experience that sacred divine I am within ourselves. Once again. So I invite us to stand if you are able. Let's just put our hands up for a moment. We'll bless the basket. We'll bless our prayers of gratitude and thank God for all that they represent and for all that we have received. May we also so freely give. May all gifts be blessed. Amen. And let us say together our closing blessing. One who nourishes us. This is the closing blessing on the last page by Captain Smith. One who nourishes us. You sustain us through your spirit. Increase our awareness of our hunger for you, that knowing we become more sensitive to the needs of others. Bread of the world, you are the sweet honey of compassion. Awaken us this day to your beauty in our midst, so that we may be vessels of your unending love. So in a moment, we will go outside and sing our sacred Hallelujah song so that we can sing it outside with the masks off. We want to give thanks to Tara and Cindy for setting up our tea time outside this morning. And so as we will be, want to offer our blessings to everyone who is online, and so send our love to you. And so I'll also take this moment to say another announcement or two. And that is that I will be actually going on vacation. My flight is leaving